Chicago, third largest city in the United States of America, definitely second to none. With its long history of innovators, history makers, world leaders, revolutionary thinkers, known for its toughness, its creativity, its passion, and its traditions. Chicago sets the pace for every race and it follows its own lead. Welcome to our city. Welcome to the Home Rule Podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of Home Rule Podcast. It's a special day. You can obviously see why it's special, but let me give you just a little basic background about what this podcast is since it is the first episode. As you all know, the Corner Convo Podcast is our podcast, and it's really hard to have every conversation in one format. So what we've decided to do is to take different opportunities to have certain discussions so that we can really dig deep into them. And so politics obviously is one, but also, you know, we're about the people, not about the politics. So we brought these gentlemen that you see to my left here to talk about the person behind the candidate, if you will. Which again, when you have normal podcasts, you don't really get to do that. You don't really get to actually talk about the human. It's always about the policy and the form, you know, the platform and all those things. We're about the people. So Home Rule Podcast will always be a podcast that is focused on people that are politically active, not necessarily just politicians, but activists, people that are raising awareness for certain things. But we will definitely focus on those people. So without further ado, I actually want y'all to introduce yourselves because I know y'all practice this all day, all the time.
We promise not to give the pat answers that we give.
No, I just want to hear you and your voice say who you are. So let's start all the way to the left there, dear brother.
What's going on, man? Good morning. Cam Buckner, currently a state rep candidate for mayor, but a son of the South Side, born and raised in the city. Proud CPS graduate, Morgan Park High School, and raising my family right here in Bronzeville, a few blocks from here. So really excited to be here this morning.
Son of the South Side. It sounds like a serial killer. Anyway. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning to Kimby. Roderick Sawyer, served as alderman in 6th Ward, also a candidate for mayor, but also a lifetime member of the South Side. Was born in Park Manor, still live in the same neighborhood. Happy to be here this morning. This is just very, very exciting that we can get to talk about Chicago.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you. You don't know me yet. It's McKinday, but it's all good.
McKinday.
It's all good. Everybody does that. It's all good.
My mistake.
Not a worry.
Thank you.
In fact, I've heard everything under the sun. I've had third grade teacher that on the first day of school was like, looked at my name and added like 7 letters that weren't there. And I'm just like, how you gonna teach me how to read? Like, you can't even sound out vowels and consonants. Like, I'm supposed to listen to you teach me how to read. But anyway,
thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
So let's get right to it, man. Chicago, y'all both South Siders. Now,
Yes.
you said Park Manor.
Park Manor.
And you were Morgan
Roseland.
Park. Roseland.
Morgan Park High School. I'm from Roseland.
What high school did you go to?
St. Ignatius. I know it's going to be a thing today, right? Already.
Like, nobody's. Come on, man. What do you want me to do?
No, I'm
with St.
serious.
Ignatius? No, I'm playing. But that is a thing.
It's funny because I did not want to go there, but
Really?
but I was glad that I went.
Where did you want to go?
I want to go to Kenwood
Why?
because that's where the girls were.
Yes. Okay. This is a
Come
true
on now,
statement.
I mean, that's a true statement never could be.
It's a true statement. You went to Morgan Park, right?
I did.
So this is a real thing, right? In Chicago, your high school is like your pedigree. Like, for real. It's like you wear it like a badge. You know what I mean? Like, I went to Proviso East in Maywood, which ain't technically in the city of Chicago.
It's like across the street.
That's what I say.
It's right there. Right.
But you know, but people that went to Oak Park or people that went to Westinghouse, they go, no, it's not. You're not Chicago, right? Like, so, but there's a super affiliation with where you went to high school.
Oh, absolutely.
And so my question is this: do you think that's because your high school experience, like your neighborhood, is associated with what high school you went to? Well, at least not in your case. You went to St. Ignatius, which has nothing to do with South Side. But
technically, it's on the South
Yeah,
Side. I get you.
It's on the north side of Roosevelt, so it's on the north side.
Exactly. Right. But yeah, do you think that like people like gravitate in Chicago to their high school? Because I go to other cities, people don't talk about their high schools in the same way that we do. Do you think it's because of the neighborhoods?
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we are a city of neighborhoods, right? And our neighborhoods, and not just the 77 community groups we talk about, but like our micro neighborhoods, right? I think that those are really important to us. And so when you look at what grammar school you went to, and I said grammar school, not elementary school,
right?
Or what high school you went to, there's a connection there, and that's how people figure out if you're one of them. That's how people figure out. Both for good and bad, what your worth is sometimes as well.
That's real.
And so it's a very Chicago thing.
Oh, absolutely. Even like I said, going to Ignatius, you can figure out what parties you went to back then. So if I know you were the same age, and if you went to Kenwood, you went to these parties. You went to CVS, you went to these parties.
Good point.
You went to Ignatius or some of the Catholic schools, you went to these parties. So it was just how we socialized back then, and even going forward to now at our advanced ages, we still go back to where we went to high school. If you're like Cam and I have been lifelong residents of Chicago, we always ask that question about somebody we just meet because we want to know where you hung out. Where you from? Where you really from? Right?
Yeah.
And I'll add this too. I think even for folks like Rod who went to some of the Catholic schools, you still found a way to be adjacent to the school that you would have gone to anyway.
Facts.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean Kenwood. To your point, right? I'm Maywood is obviously far from the South Side.
Mm-hmm.
But I had family. Like my parents' friends they were from the South Side, and all of their very pretty daughters went to Kenwood. And let's also say this: Kenwood ain't just about pretty women. We gotta say that. Everybody
Kenwood's
always
a very
does
good
that to
academic
Kenwood.
school,
It's
right?
a great
It's a very
school.
great school,
Dr.
right.
Jones was a hell of a principal. I know he's not there no more, but he was a hell of a principal. It's a great academic institution. But in that same way, I found as many opportunities as I could to get on that blue line, to transfer at Jackson, to get on that red line, to get off on 55th, to take that 55, to get off on Lake Park, to trot 3-4 blocks away just to get over there. Right.
To that point, I would take the number 6 Jeffrey bus to catch the girls from Whitney Young. And I lived nowhere east.
Exactly.
I would go take the bus to 75th Street, and I had to take the 75th Street bus all the back west to my house just so I can meet the girls from Whitney Young.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. Chicago offers, and you all talked about neighborhoods, right? And so within that, this whole point about what neighborhood you from, we could be real. Chicago's also a very segregated city. Yeah. And like that neighborhood, the phrase across the tracks is a real thing here. There are actual tracks all over Chicago. Yes. And the minute you cross them, you're in a different space, right? Yeah. So in Maywood, we crossed them tracks on St. Charles, you in Melrose Park.
Right.
That was like a danger zone at some point. Like whether they knew you or not, it's like you're not supposed to be here. So that's also a part of that conversation. It's like, you meet somebody, a girl, a homeboy, whatever. I need to know where you from before we start getting tight, because there might be friction there that I can't control. You know what I'm saying?
Because I went to Catholic school, but I didn't necessarily live the Catholic school life. I did hang out in my neighborhood with my guys from the neighborhood. We went to Hirsch or Dunbar, CVS, and I went to those parties. I went because I was a stepper. People don't understand that. That's something
we about
me.
to get to the parties.
Even though I was a DJ and I DJ'd house music.
Did you really?
Stepping was my avocation. I love steppers music and I love stepping.
But what was your DJ name?
Rod. Hot Rod, actually.
See, you had no creativity back then.
I call you Hot Rod all the time. I didn't realize.
No, I had my license plate. My license plate was really Hot Rod.
Okay, out of here.
My car's license plates were Hot Rod for a long time.
That's wild.
At least till I got married. So
I DJ.
Warm rod. Now you
warm rod.
Lukewarm rod.
Lukewarm. Room temperature rod.
Yes, ma'am, Rod. Yes, ma'am, Rod. Yes, baby.
Hey, that's
yes,
real.
baby.
But look,
Yes,
McKinney,
baby, I love you.
That piece about Chicago. So Chicago has very intentionally been planned and developed the way it is for a reason. Right. Like you said, being from the other side of the tracks, right? Or if you're on the west side, Austin being the street that separates, Oak Park from the west side of the city. And I think even more so, we don't talk about this enough. We talk about the segregation between black and whites and Latinos in this city. But there was a very intentional segregation between black folks. Yes. West side black folks and south side black folks
still,
don't know each other. Right?
It's like oil and water. Mm-hmm. Like you find out there's 3 West Side people in the same room and you a South Side, you leave.
Yeah, right. And so I think part of what people have tried to do in this new generation is as we connect the black South Side and the black West Side, we realize we have so much in common, man. And I think people left us apart for a long time because we're more powerful when we're together, and that separation makes it worse.
Oh yeah, we had times where what we used to call the low end, which is Bronzeville now. Low end didn't hang around with Lake Meadows, which are
and it's like blocks away,
exactly blocks away from each other. It was a cultural thing, and now we have to get past that, and I'm glad that we're at least starting and working toward getting past that. But it is still a thing.
And this is, straight up, this is why this conversation is really important, right? Because we are people from Chicago, right? And you know, we're different generations in that way, right? So it's like the parts of Chicago, there are parts of Chicago that have changed, right? Like you said, we used to call it the low end, right? We can't call it that no more, right? It's a whole different space, right? But then there are still parts of Chicago that have not changed, right? So I'm gonna come back to that. But so you're a house DJ.
Yeah.
Your era is like my era. We're 90s hip hop R&B, right? So what were you wearing to the party?
Pretty much with the exception of this shirt. Blue jeans, a t-shirt, jumpers.
You wasn't wearing this jacket.
I wasn't wearing it. But I mean, I was always a blue jean guy. So I, you know, if you saw me on a regular day without me having to be on, I'm blue jeans, t-shirt, gym shoes. Yeah. That's me.
But back you and Dusabu though, y'all was going to the party. No, I'm joking.
See, ageism is real, guys. Right? Since I'm the oldest person on this podcast right now.
Hey, the other part about
the early part of Cam got me good a little early, so I admit that.
Yeah, he asked him. Cam was like, "Man, what was it like kicking it with Dusabu?"
My brother.
But that's the thing. Also from Chicago, you've got to be able to take a real joke.
Oh, absolutely. You got to be able to take it. Right.
You better throw one too.
Right.
Cam, what were you wearing to the party?
Man, I was a white tee Jabot straps Timberland dude.
Spell Jabot.
G-I-R-B-A-U-D. Oui.
That can't be correct. There's not enough letters. For the longest time, I thought Jabot was J-O-B-O. Until I actually bought a pair.
Oh, man. Yeah, man.
I had no idea it was 17 letters in Jabot.
Yeah. I did have to correct that, though. When I went to Steppin', I had a different outfit on.
Okay.
Right. You know, I had to change it. I don't know if you all remember Nick shirts, which were these highly flammable nylon shirts you could wear. If you got anywhere near it with a cigarette,
walking fire
hazard.
Wait, but all y'all was smoking Newports and Virginia Slims back then.
I was a Newport smoker. You know, I haven't smoked in 40-some years, but
it's a safety hazard,
we were
sir.
Smoking. It was. But the shirt had really beautiful designs on them, and you had your Stacey Adams shoes on, and
look, he going back to that moment. Look at it, like
to pop that collar and come on, slide down the road. Right, it was fun, right?
Well, all right, let's go. So now you at the party. You got your jeans and your flammable shirt on.
Right.
What do you say to the ladies back then? What's the game back then?
Well, the game was watching us step. You know, back then, stepping was a competition.
Huh.
No, so I had my partner, my boy Juice was my stepping partner.
Hot Rod and Juice?
Hot Rod and Juice.
Man, they sound like trouble, don't they?
Right.
Oh, that's a whole nother story.
Really
but, you know, I hung out with people that I guess nowadays they would call delinquents and people that were, you know, affiliated, if you will.
Yeah,
so those are people I really hung out with. Those are people I spent most of my time with because of the music.
Yeah.
Because of the genre of the music that I really liked, and there was steppers music. So I learned how to step. Then I got my boy in the neighborhood, my homie. We stepped together. We went to the garage. That's when I first met Sam Chapman. When I was like 17 years old, I met Sam.
Shout out Sam Chapman.
Love Sam Chapman.
Yeah,
I became immersed with Sam Chapman music because he was the Steppers DJ even back then in the late 70s, and it was just a time, man. It was just music. So you had to go out there on the floor and perform. You had to get out there. You had all the great steppers out there. And you tried to hold your own, and that's why the girls look at you. Yeah, you know.
So the way to get a lady back in your day.
Well, depending on if I was going to the Catholic school thing or if I was going to the steppers.
Because the house party,
house party is a whole different.
House is the same.
Vibe, different
still
women.
Dance.
Different. The women at the steppers parties were different from the women at the house parties.
But it's still about
Booty
dance.
Fest, all the parties that were happening back then. It was just a whole different scene, if you will.
Cam, what you saying? First of all, what club? He done told us what clubs he was at. What club you going to, and what you saying when you walk in?
We do a lot of clubs, man. With a lot of house parties, a lot of basement parties. But when we did go out, we would take that long journey to the Dalton Expo.
The Dalton Expo.
And that was the spot, man. Every Saturday night, or the rink on Friday nights.
Rink on Saturday afternoon was right.
That was listen. Let me tell you something about Dalton Expo. First of all, that place was illegal from jump.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt about it.
But that was one of the few places. I mean, we used to go there from Maywood. Like that's a 50-minute ride. You basically risking your life going there and coming back because you don't know nobody out there. I remember coming out of Dalton Expo one day, and me, my older brother, my cousin, and one of my homeboys, and we parked. I want to say like a block away because they had the parking lot there, but we got there late.
So it was
right?
filled up.
So it's full, right?
right.
So we park around the corner. We come out, and when we get to the car, the whole block, every car, windows bust out, stuff taken. And it was the first time I remember being like in the south suburbs. I was maybe about 20, 21. It's the first time I remember thinking to myself, I'm never coming back to this place ever again. And I get back to this conversation about like the way we exist in Chicago, the way we identify where we are from and where we won't go has to do with those types of experiences. It's that one experience that like set me off where I'm just like, I'm not coming over here no more, man. I don't need this.
I feel bad for youth right now because we did have so many places to go when I was younger. Matter of fact, we used to go to the Loft, which is right down here on 14th in Michigan. Went to Sowers, which is right over here.
So you kicked it with George Daniels too then?
No, he's a little older than me. Come on now, y'all.
Everybody kicked it with George
Everybody kicked it with George Daniels.
He's still kicking it now.
George is cross-generational.
George is right now. And I did kick with George Daniels back then, and he was still the older guy in the room, but he was always there. And I love George. But we would go to all these places, Tree of Life. We had so many things to go to at night, and all we wanted to do was dance and have fun. And we stayed out all night, never had an incident. We spent out the rest of our night at White Castle on 79th in South Chicago.
Yeah.
That was
the
a
whole
part of our
parking
era,
lot
too.
would be,
Yep.
before the Aldi's was built. All that whole area was. Everybody had the same channels on the radio, and we just sit there and just have.
We
a
going
good
to the
time.
9. Well, y'all
We
going to the 9.
Going to the 9, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we just had it was an era where we all got along and got together. Even if there was a fight, it was a fist fight. There was no gunplay. It was not. And then you shook hands and you sat there and kicked it again. Talked about how the fight went.
Exactly.
So it was more that kind of scenario. Nowadays, I just feel bad for youth because they don't have outlets like that.
I agree, man. I agree. Yeah, I mean, y'all know I teach, and we had those. When they hear me tell my stories, I sound like ancient to them. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm only 40 years old, right? So I sound like when I'm talking, I'm like, yeah, before cell phones, before the internet, right? Like they look at me like I'm a dinosaur, right? But I hear your point, right? It's this concept that like for a long time, quite honestly, prior to your generation, leading up to our generation, the world really hadn't changed that much, right? Like life, you saw these small changes in a lifestyle, but it really, at the end of the day, life was kind of the same. And then that internet hit.
Yeah. Changed everything.
And that internet literally, in one generation of humans, like 20 years, it changed the entire scope of how we live now, right? So I'm bringing that up to say that what was the most important piece of technology to you in your like teen years?
Wow, in my teen years, I guess the advent of video games were coming up. Just and our video games were not exciting. Pong.
Two green lines and a green square. Yeah. It was supposed to be a ball. It wasn't even round.
Right, it wasn't even round. Right.
It's just a square.
It wasn't even round. But then we started getting the games like the football game that you played.
When he moves left and right.
Left and right.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that was transformative in my era. This was still before the personal computer. I won't say computers because then y'all be talking about me again. But before personal, before you had personal computers, before that we had games that we thought were transformative, but right now it looks so it does look so ancient. So that was our technology, And later on cell phones. My father had a phone in his car.
Oh,
which
you
was
was balling.
But you know what? My job was to try to get a signal. You had to hit this button and try to get a signal. You had to sit there.
Really? You had to keep resetting type of thing?
Right. You had to keep doing it until you got a signal. Dad, I got a signal. All right, then dial a number right here.
That's dope.
It wasn't guaranteed that you get a signal back in those days.
That's wild.
So it was crazy, and that was the new technology. That was it. So
that's extraordinary.
It for sure was cell phones for me, right? I mean, because I grew up in the era like you, McKinday, where it started to proliferate. There were way more cell phones, and the thing is that it changed the way you did your daily life, right? So, for instance, I was telling my nephews this. They're 26 now. They're twins. I was telling them a story. I was like, listen, when we told our boys we're going to meet them at the plaza at 4 o'clock, you got to meet in front of the champ.
Because you ain't going to have no other way to meet them. Right, yeah.
Right? So it changed that. Being in school, right? You don't pass notes no more. You text message,
Right.
You don't have to pass notes and get caught, right? So I mean, just a lot of that changed through the advent of cell phones, and it made things a lot different, at least for people in my space.
I'm glad to hear that the plaza was still a thing.
Oh yeah, and I'm from the Huntington too, man. So that was spot every Saturday
I made
morning,
intentional effort
man.
to get to the plaza the weekend.
Look,
right?
so
Absolutely
morning.
right.
this is super.
Orange Julius.
It's super
Yep.
funny you say that,
And the
right?
Lark.
Yep,
So
the Lark.
pre cell phone for me. So my older brother's a professor now, but he's always been like a techie junkie. Like he's a gadget guy. So like the first Palm Pilot, he got tired of it after the first year, bought something else. I always got the hand-me-down
hand-me-downs.
tech. So I always went to school.
I'm the youngest, so I do.
Yeah, I always went to school with the freshest stuff that was only a year old, technology wise, right? One day he had this. He at this time, I guess he had just graduated college because I'm a sophomore. He had this device that was basically a dictionary, right? It was just a digital dictionary, so you could type in a word and it would give you the definition, right? Very educational tool. But it also had a note section, right? And so I discovered the note section and knew that nobody else even knew what this was.
Yeah.
And I cheated on every Spanish test, every vocabulary quiz, you understand?
Right.
And then when the teacher would come, I could just flip it up and like, no, it's a dictionary.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. I ain't got no answers to nothing in here. They didn't know that this little button over here was the note section.
Right.
But to your point, I used to type in the note,
Yep.
slide it to the homeboy, hey, pass that to her.
Yep.
Pass that
Yep.
to her, right?
Yep.
So I agree with you, right? It's this concept. I mean, I teach now, and my class is fully digital. Students come in, they're on Chromebooks for
Yep.
two reasons. One, I think paper is stupid. It's just stupid.
I get you.
Especially if you're a teacher, because I have to give you, first I have to print the paper, I have to collect the paper, then I have to give it back to you, and then somehow you have to keep track of the paper, and if you don't keep track of the paper and your mama want to know why you got an F, then I got to try and come up with a reason why.
Right.
It's just a lot of barriers to communication. So if it's typed into this little box, that ain't never going nowhere. I can pull that up whenever I want. You can see it whenever you want. Your mama can see it whenever you want. Like we got all the records, right? Receipts. But you have to trust. So I tell my students all the time, look, man, you could be on YouTube all you want. I'm not finna police you like that. I'm not finna just be over your shoulder. And I'm saying that to say that, do you feel, you mentioned like back in, I keep saying back in your day. I'm not trying to make old
That's
jokes. But do you feel like you said, people didn't have the same type of conflict issues that we are seeing now with young people, right? It was like, if you got an issue, you got an issue, and then that gets resolved, and then we keep moving, right? I feel like part of this technology is actually created, it's supposed to give us instant access to communicate with each other and connect, but part of it has actually separated us in a way where it's generated more conflict.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this off camera before we started. I think that a lot of people, not just youth, I think everybody is losing the ability to socialize with one another.
Right.
We don't have conversations any longer. I've literally watched my children text each other or seen them text each other when they're next to each other. I mean, it just makes no sense. But we have to get back to the art of conversation. And part of the art of conversation is, in some instances, the art of de-escalation, to make sure that we can have these conversations where they don't get to be a thing where the next thing is gunplay or next thing is something more serious than it should be. We talk, and we played to dozens.
Right, yeah, we've been joking since we got
That was
here.
continuously,
It's
right?
8 o'clock in the morning.
We played the dozens, and then your mama got involved.
Yeah.
I mean, we still played the dozens. It was still good natured. It might get a little heated sometimes, every so often, but even then, you know when to stop. When you press the wrong button. We don't have that any longer. Right now, you say one thing to somebody, then it's, we got to go hard. We got to go hard, right? We got to do something.
I think also, man, we because of the ease of technology and the ease of communication, what it has done is it's disconnected us from actually thinking. Right? People are on autopilot all the time.
Auto type.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you can literally type three
real.
letters in and it just finished the message for you.
And so the lack of ability to, like Rod said, to connect with people. Also, there's a lack of ability to empathize and to sympathize and to emote, right? Because we're doing all of this stuff, but we're not thinking through our things. And so now, when I get in a difficult situation and I'm mad, instead of thinking through it, because the brain is a muscle and I've now worked it out because I ain't been thinking, instead of thinking through it, I do the first thing I can think of emotionally, which will ruin my life and somebody else's, unfortunately.
And I actually use an emoji.
Yeah.
Like instead of even using words,
Right.
I tell my students, I say, what's interesting is y'all don't even know that That's the smallest text ever. Like we had a production assistant over here with tiny type talking about. Okay, got you. I mean, you could also just say that out loud. It's okay.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, it's all good.
Sorry.
So the question was, how does that tie into Chicago, right? And I'm gonna kind of answer the question, but I want to hear your answer too. I think that again, we talk about the history of how, and we can be straight up. We talk about the history of how black people came to Chicago. You only had one choice. You didn't have to know the neighbor, but we in the same position, we in the same situation. It's necessary that we find a way to figure each other out in a way that's developmental for both of us, right? Where we can protect each other. My grandmother used to come in town from California. My parents would leave. My grandmother don't know nobody on this block, right? But she would send me to the store to go get a pack of cigarettes. First of all, they let 11-year-olds get cigarettes back in the day, right? And lottery tickets, right? And within the same core, I knew that even though my grandmother didn't know these people, that anything goes down, anything goes wrong, like they're gonna tell my grandmother, right? I do something I'm not supposed to do, she's gonna find out, right? So I guess still the question is, like, with communication where it is now, how do we I don't know really how to phrase this question actually. Like, how does that impact the future of Chicago specifically?
I think the way we communicate now makes us very insular and siloed, and we're in touch with what we want and what we feel, and then because of that, the kind of village aspect goes away.
The village.
Because what we're told by other people is to mind your own business, or I don't yell at other people's kids. Like, literally, my mother would snatch you up in the store, whether you belong
Whoever
to her or
you
not,
are, yeah.
if you were doing something that you had no business doing. And to me, now that we're all kind of doing this stay in your own lane, mind your business thing, not seeing what's around us, how many people currently live on blocks where they don't know all their neighbors? That's crazy. Like, for me, growing up, not only did I know everybody who lived on my block, but I knew all of their extended families too. Right, because that was something that you did when you lived in a village.
Yeah.
I think we've lost our village mentality, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what Cam just stated. We've lost that mentality. If you don't know the person to your left and to your right, it's not their fault. It's your fault. You know, you should extend yourselves and at least know your immediate neighbors, but you should know your neighbors on your block. And you should also know what's going on in your neighborhood. And I also grew up in that time where you knew everyone in the general area, not just in your block. When your block was, taken care of, we had men on the block. We had fathers that were there, if something was to happen. I literally remember when this was the Blackstone Rangers came around our block back in the late 60s, early 70s. And I remember the men standing up and getting the block, coming to the end of the block, beginning of the block rather, and saying, no, it ain't happening right here.
Yeah.
We can
She's
talk.
shutting that down.
We can talk.
Yeah.
We can talk,
Yeah.
but ain't no BS going on right here. Right?
You brought up fathers. I want to get to that. But also, what's also really interesting is, and we talk about this, like, you had to actually memorize phone numbers.
Oh, yeah. I still do it now.
And you said something, Cam. You said the brain is a muscle, right? And you said this idea that if you don't use it, then it's weak. You don't know how to flex when it's important. And so even just the ability to memorize all the most important numbers, like, in your life, right?
Yeah.
You can't do that now.
Right.
I know you can't do
I can
that
still
now.
do a little bit of it.
I remember
Actually,
some
numbers,
old ones,
numbers
but
I'm
the new
usually
ones-
pretty good on.
You still memorize
I still
phone
memorize
numbers?
more numbers than normal, but obviously with the phone you become more dependent on the phone.
Yeah, you
but,
just hit the name.
but back, it's still an exercise I play with in my face. I still know a lot
Really?
of numbers in my head still. to this day.
But to that, you call it
But I understand.
exercise.
Yeah.
But that is. So I'm saying, like, our young people don't even have to do that, right? So it's like there's so many ways for them to check out of. And I also say that to say how it connects to Chicago is that, like, we blame young people for a lot.
Yeah.
We blame young people for a lot that's going on in this city. We constantly say it's because of these little kids. It's because of these little kids. But we rarely look at how we fail to prepare them in a certain way.
Yeah.
And so now I want to get to the fatherhood piece. Your father?
Yep.
Your father?
Yes.
How many?
14 months.
14. Oh, brand new.
brand new.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
sir.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
22 and 28 years.
Not months.
Young buck.
What advice do you pass down from the generation before you to your kids now?
Be present. I mean, be present with your children. Let them know that you support them, that you want to be a part of their lives. One of the things I did, I mean, I stayed in like LSC. I did that because I wanted to watch my children. I wanted to be there around them. I wanted to be supportive of what they're doing and understand them better. I think that a lot of us have failed our children in that regard. We don't, support what they're doing. We don't question them and be a parent, not be a friend, be a parent. Be that person that says, that extends discipline, but extends love and understanding. We have to make sure that as our children are growing and maturing, they're going to make those mistakes. Sometimes you have to, you're going to tell them what not to do and what to do and what not to do, but eventually they're going to do their own thing and they're going to make that mistake. You have to be there to support them when they make that mistake, not if, because it's going to happen. We did it. Our children are going to do it as well. When they make that mistake, be there to support them, help them correct it, and make sure that they keep moving forward so they don't get demoralized or just get confused about what they're doing. And I think that's really the disconnect right now. And really, and I have to say it, having a male figure in the home and around, particularly when we're talking about young boys, there has to be someone there that can help guide them. I love my women, and they do a great job. Trust me, I'm not saying that, but having a man there, particularly when we're dealing with young men and young women too, you want to have that perspective. You need that balance. You need both a man and a woman there to get children that balance that they need to have growing up.
Yeah, that's real. And I would say that for me, especially being new in this journey, this part of my journey.
The fact that you can get sleep is hilarious.
Man, I don't get sleep.
Sure you don't, right?
But I think a lot about the things that my father and my uncles imparted on me, right? And what I saw from my older brother-in-laws and cousins and people in the space. And for me, it's being able to create a sense of self-worth, right? Because the world is really cruel, especially the little black boys, right? And so creating that sense of self-worth and kind of unapologetic confidence, I think is super important. And for them to have self-awareness, right? Know what's going on around you. My father was always very specific to let me know, like, dude, at 12 years old, when I was 6'2", you're like, yeah, you're going to, people going to see you as a problem, right?
Yeah,
and so
sure.
you have to learn how to maneuver through this world in a space and time that protects you, but also where people know that you're not to be played with either, right? So there's a balance there that we have to be able to impart on folks.
All right, I'm going to shift here. Best chicken in Chicago. You about to lose a lot of supporters because if you pick whichever one you say, you're gonna lose 50% of the city.
I'm not doing the Harold Remus thing. I'm gonna tell y'all a hidden gem on 103rd Street. There's a place called Judy's Sports Bar and Grill.
I love Judy's.
Judy's has the
man.
most
Judy's got the
amazing
best food.
chicken. Come on, let them know.
Oh, really?
That's a real Chicago move
I
right
have
there.
not been to
Food
Judy's.
would be so good. I would go to Judy's and watch the post office people come out with 15 bags of food. And I know they just still do the wings primarily now, but they used to have the short ribs. They used to have, they would change the dinners every day at Judy's on 103rd.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my
It was a different menu every day.
right. And so
whatever the cook
That
decided
was an
to cook.
illegal establishment. Whatever they
the brother
got
who was
off the
frying
truck.
chicken there now is named Hot Rod. His name is Rodney.
Right. Because Black used to be my client. I used to
Okay,
represent them. I used to
Look,
represent
see,
Judy's,
this
man.
is a real Chicago conversation.
And another one I have is Marlon's Chicken on 75th
Yeah.
Street. Marlon's Chicken. Marlon,
I've never heard of any of these places.
Marlon's right off 75th and St. Lawrence. I'm giving you a free plug, Marlon. So look out, brother. Right.
Hey, Marlon, look out for me, Jack.
Right.
I'm giving you the free plug.
No, Marlon's Chicken is great chicken. He's a good young man, good entrepreneur. His chicken is the bomb. Right.
Best Italian
I
beef.
love Harold. Don't get me. I love Harold's. Love Uncle Remus.
Harold's is overrated. Uncle Remus is
But
dangerous.
check out Marlon on 75th and St. Lawrence. Right.
What best Italian beef in Chicago?
Oh gosh.
Because that's a Chicago thing. Italian beef
I'm
is a
a
Chicago
big
thing.
Mr. Beef fan on Orleans.
Really?
Yeah.
Mr. Beef is good.
Mr. Beef is good. And it's been there a long time. It's been there, I went to high school next to Al's. Al's is okay.
But Taylor Street, you was right down the
I was
street
right there,
from Taylor.
right behind.
Yeah,
It was right behind us.
Yeah.
Literally right behind us. Al is good. There used to be a place called Victori's on Taylor Street. That was the place we all went to. That was really great. No one went to Al's. We all went to a place called Victori's, which no longer
It's
exists.
like the small Italian spot, right? Like it's like
but it no longer exists now. But back then, it was the place everybody went to. We all went to. Great beef sandwich.
If I'm going mainstream, it's Mr. Beef for sure. And then if you in the neighborhoods, Maggie's got a pretty good
Maggie's
Italian
Yo,
beef.
I still order from Maggie's to
Yeah, we
this
both.
day. Like,
That's
like
right.
if I'm not gonna physically go to the restaurant to get an Italian beef, I'm ordering from Maggie's. I
Yeah.
still don't physically know where it is because I only
right on
order it
Cottage.
on
Yeah.
Uber
Yeah.
Eats.
Yeah.
I have
right
no
on
clue
Cottage.
where Maggie's
45th
is.
and Cottage, across the street from Brownsville Winery.
It's about, like, you know how when you open the app
Yep.
and then like your top joints come up,
Yep.
like order from here
That's
again.
right.
Like
And they're-
Maggie's
they're
is
open
always
late,
on
too.
there.
They're open real late, so
yeah,
you-
they open super late. That's probably part of it. That's interesting. Okay, other Chicago things. What's your best memory on the train, on the L?
I don't know if I should talk about those because mine were really. Now you're really dipping in my delinquent phase in high school. But what we would do, we would all, like I said, we would get together from Ignatius. We would walk. We would either walk over to Whitney Young because that was the closest school that had girls, and I had to. I'd be honest with you. When I first was at Ignatius before we went co-ed, Whitney Young had just opened.
Yeah.
Whitney Young,
it was a magnet school.
Whitney Young had
first
just
time. Yeah.
opened a few years before I went to maybe 2 or 3 years before I went to high school. So it was new, but beautiful women there. So we would walk over to Whitney Young. Again, we would take the number 6 bus. We would bring our radios, have our mixtapes. So everybody had a boom box. We all had boom boxes.
Why do you need 3 people with 3 different boom boxes?
No, one with battery, because batteries don't last that long, right?
And they was this big.
You had 8D batteries. You had to have 8D batteries in there, right? So that's all your lunch money. You put your batteries. So when that one just died out, you had to get somebody else to take
Got
next to
it.
But we would take the number
Wow.
6 bus, meet all the beautiful women from Whitney Young, go way out of our way because we live nowhere in Hyde Park and nowhere in South
all the way to
Shore.
Kenwood.
Right, and then to do all that, we went by Kenwood, the whole thing, and then
Did y'all break dance on the train like in the movie?
no, this is house music. So this is early house. This was we didn't even call it house music. It wasn't even called house music at this time.
Oh,
we
good
were
point.
just jacking our bodies. It
Got
was
it.
just that's what it was.
Got it, yeah.
So you had tapes that we made, and we get on the bus and you turn them all up, and the people on the bus, some people obviously would be annoyed, but the majority of the bus, we would try to get a bus where we had all students on the bus.
And
So
then
we would
turn
all
it to a
and
party.
just turn it to a party. Even the bus
interesting.
drivers would be like, yeah, just get down. Because we were happy. We were just
That's
happy.
a good
We were-
point,
right.
though. I love this conversation about, like,
Yeah.
I remember getting on the bus and commuting to work and seeing the same lady every day.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing, Miss Parks? Right?
Yeah.
You on your way to work today? How's your daughter? Again, you get on the bus now, we sitting this close.
Right.
Yeah, no
conversation.
talking, no communication.
No, at least then we talked to everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody, we were engaging with everybody
And
on
you
the
see the
bus.
same
We having a
people
ball.
every day.
Right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
right.
I think, man, and I'm so excited that we're having this conversation because this is a very Chicago-centric conversation. I'll just say for the people listening, if your mayoral candidate can't talk about Chicago like this, they
Yeah,
should
they
be
don't
your
need to be
mayor.
mayor.
Should be a mayor.
They don't need to be mayor.
But I'm thinking about, man, for about 3 or 4 months in high school, every Friday we did this thing where, so Morgan Park was right on the 111, 112 bus line, and we literally would have like fights, just regular fights, no guns, no knives involved, on the bus, right? So it would start off with the Chaz kids, the Chicago
Yep,
agricultural
Chaz,
kids.
yep.
They get on first because that was the terminus of the line. Then they would get on. Then we would get on at Morgan Park. We'd beat them up, and then we'll come down.
they get off the bus.
They get off the bus. Then we come down Vincennes. Julian get on. They beat up half of us, and then it gets over. And then people go. Simeon kids will beat up the Julian kids.
That's
But by the
hilarious.
end of the route, we were all like at the same place and just kicking after that. We didn't get in fights. We didn't did our thing, but we were all cool after that, man.
you laugh about it, right, yeah.
And I just can't see that happening
My
today.
boys, so shout out to Aman and Abasi from the Corner Convo podcast, who is producing this podcast. They talk about this. They went to Lane Tech, which I never give any credit. It was a great school, very intelligent, but like they act all tough. Like you can't be at Lane Tech acting tough. But
Lane Tech was a big school.
it is. It's a
5,000
giant
students
school.
back then, right?
And they did a great job, and we could talk about that in a second, but they did a great job of actually drawing before it was like a chic thing to do. They did a very good job back then of making sure that they had a very representative
From all over
student
the city.
population,
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
right.
But they talk about that with Gordon Tech, how they would get on the bus at some point at Central or whatever it is, and then halfway down they would get on and it was like, all right, who fighting today type of
Right.
thing.
Yep.
In Maywood, it wasn't like that, man.
Yeah.
Like Maywood is 1st to 21st.
Yeah.
You getting on at first, you getting off by 21st. Like
Right.
you're not going to Bellwood, right? So it's just like you was fighting people next door to you more than you was fighting like down the block type of, or another neighborhood. But to this point about schools, right? In Chicago, right? Your neighbor, there's two forms now. The basic establishment is you are expected to go to the school in your neighborhood, right? Unless you go to private school, right? Have access to another option. We now have charter schools. There's a whole separate conversation there. Yeah. But then you have selective enrollment schools, right? So you can test out of your neighborhood school. Your neighborhood school was Morgan Park, I'm assuming.
Actually, it was Julian.
It was Julian. To go to Julian. It was Julian. Yeah. So you said you wanted to go to Morgan Park.
I did.
How did that process look for you at that time? And that, like, do you feel like it was more your parents saying, I don't want you to go to Julian? Was Julian a good school at that time?
It was, I'm going to call it selective enrollment before selective enrollment, right? I went to Morgan Park because I played football. All right, and Morgan Park had a good football team. Julian did not, right? And so there's some mix of your parents and the coaches and the administration finding a way to get you in.
Your auntie's address over there.
Exactly. there was a lot of that.
Because you actually have to have a legal address that says you live over there to go to that school.
And all of us who grew up in that space, we know people who changed their address because of that. We know people who had to change their birth certificate to get in if you were born in October or whatever. Y'all remember how it used to go.
I don't remember none of that. Did not put me on record.
That was a CPS thing.
I had to get my school and my
So the reason I say selective enrollment before selective enrollment, because people had to find ways to get around the system to get their young people where they could be nourished and nurtured based on what they were good at.
Yeah. And that's crazy. So for you, it couldn't have been like that for you.
Well, no, my neighborhood school was Robeson.
Robeson. Is that even still open?
My dad went
No,
there.
now it's called Inglewood STEM. Well, we closed it. I actually had it raised, and we built a new school in its place.
Oh, congratulations. That's actually, I was going to say, because we played Robeson when I first started coaching.
Robeson was my neighborhood school. And I was in between. Robeson was actually, based on my address, Hirsch was on the other side, so it was kind of equidistant from where I was. So my parents would always, to be honest with you, they would use that as a threat. You want to go to Robeson? You want to go to Hirsch?
Exactly.
Better get them grades up, right?
So think about that. Right. Think about that. You use school as a threat. If you don't get your act together, I'm sending you to this school. Right?
And I would have been cool. I would have gone because most of my
friends. Well, you ain't had no choice.
My friends were there. I would have been all right.
Let's welcome the young blood into the situation real quick. Let's clap it up for Jay Ball over here. What up?
How you doing?
You got a lot of catching up to do, sir.
Well, I know they took all my ideas since I've been here.
Oh, no. See, that's why I say you got catching up to do.
We can't take your ideas because your Chicago experience is different from ours.
It is.
So let me just give you a quick synopsis of
what
we've talked about.
All I heard was Robeson, and I was like, man, I got scared.
Yeah, what is that? I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of what we've covered so far. We've covered why high school is important, like for your personal story in Chicago.
Yeah.
We've covered what your favorite Italian beef spot is.
Oh, Lord.
Your favorite chicken spot.
Okay.
Right? We talked about what you wear to the parties in your era, which I already know y'all was wearing fluorescent colors and like random things because I taught your generation. We talked about what schools you like, how you see this. None of this stuff that we talked about actually is going to apply to you because you came in a whole nother generation. you post internet, like you're in a whole different space. But let's just start there. Where'd you go to high school?
Well, I went to Curie first, and then I went to Wendell Phillips. And I know you say I'm posting that, but I'm actually the start to internet.
No, man, stop trying to get credit for being old, bro. Just stop.
No. It's a difference. It's a difference. We were the last generation to still play outside, right? Because we had flip phones.
But you were too.
We had dial-up. We're serious. We had dial-up. Somebody was on the phone.
I
was that last generation.
It's a very fancy flip phone.
If somebody was on the phone, couldn't have internet, dial-up was too slow. So we were still outside. So we you know, that last generation.
What neighborhood?
Inglewood.
Okay.
So 76 and Emerald, really where I spent a lot of my time.
Main childhood.
But Gresham really is that place where I saw the village, right? I grew up on 86 and Union, starting out. That's where my mom was when I was born. And that was that village, though, right? Everybody on the block knew each other. You know, I had a man named Mr. Riley, a neighbor, who gave me $1 for every A that I had on my report card. And one time I tried to take the report card back a few hours later, you know, see if he forgot.
Mr. Riley. What if Mr. Riley started drinking?
And, you know, he was one of my favorite people. He actually just recently passed a few months ago. And wasn't able to get his vote this time, but you know, he was one of those figures on the block who really cared about everybody on the block, and everybody did. You know, our neighbors, it was a village for real. Everybody know each other, kids. Everybody can go knock on the door like, "Hey, your kid out here," and it was accountability on the block. And you know, I hung out a lot with the elders on the block, and that village is really what made me.
That's really interesting, man, because we talking about one of the things that's really interesting about this conversation in general is that we really do have three total different generations, right? Like we've got what I would assume to be like your grandfather's generation. No, I'm just kidding.
Great grandfather.
But seriously, right? We've got like he was in Chicago in the
Yeah.
60s and 70s
For
or
sure.
70s as a teenager, right? Like
70s as a teenager.
yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Me and Cam are the 90s, you know what I'm saying? Late 90s as teenagers, and you were 2000s, right?
2000s, right.
And so like what's super interesting to hear you say that is that one of the first things we said in the beginning of the conversation is like there are parts of Chicago that have stayed consistent.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And there are parts of Chicago that have completely changed.
Right.
So to hear you talk about a village in the 2000s, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? In what 2000s Inglewood was.
talk.
My grandfather went to Inglewood High School. He met my grandmother at Inglewood High School
Wow.
in the 50s.
Right.
Right? And they talked about Inglewood entirely different
Oh, yeah.
than the way we talk about it now. So to hear
100%.
you say that is interesting to see that thread. All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to let you catch up. Favorite chicken spot?
Favorite chicken spot? I had to give it to Harold's.
Moving on. Favorite Italian beef?
But it's the right
No,
Harold's,
no,
right?
explanations.
My Uncle Percy
You missed
Harold's,
that time.
you
You
know,
missed your
all right,
opportunity to give
all
him
right.
definition. Favorite Italian beef?
I'm not a big Italian beef fan.
Really? You are not Chicago.
I'm not a big Italian
No,
beef
I'm just
fan.
playing. I'm just playing.
Yeah.
What was the other one? I asked. Oh,
No, his wife didn't like
favorite
that.
favorite
No,
public
no.
transportation
Yeah.
story. Did you ride the L at any point in your life, like consistently?
Yeah, of course.
What line?
All throughout my life. Red Line, as well as the 79th Street bus.
That's a whole
Hey,
story. That
that's
needs to be a
a whole-
book about the 79th Street
Oh, it's
bus.
real.
Oh, yeah.
I had to get on that 79th Street bus every day. And you know, when I was going to Curie, then I went to Phillips on the low end after a couple
You
years.
just
But
said low
Still
end.
said low end, right?
It's really,
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad you late now because you validating a lot of what we said when you weren't here.
yeah.
Got
Yeah,
it. So
spent
wait,
a lot of
favorite
time
story
with
though?
low
What's the favorite story? What was going on?
Oh, on the bus?
bus, yeah.
Oh my God. What wasn't going on the 79th Street bus or the Red Line? I say it was one of my favorite experiences because I was on the bus acting crazy with my friends on the 79th Street bus.
Acting crazy.
And yeah, we was acting crazy. We was throwing paper balls at people that we didn't even know, right?
That's acting crazy.
And this one girl, I'm talking about, she's about 6'3", 6'4". She got up,
Right.
came back to the back of the bus, and smacked the taste out of my mouth. She became my best friend. And
I bet. Yeah. Yeah. Probably your campaign manager. Right.
she was by my side. She was by my side every single day from there on.
That's
And
hilarious.
I had the
Right.
protection all throughout my teenage life because of Ray Shonda.
Shout out Ray Shonda. You just brought up another quick Chicago topic. You said Tombout. Spell that. Spell Tombout.
TALM.
Apostrophe.
Right. BOUT.
Right.
Tombout.
Tombout.
Your era. What? Give me some lingo from Chicago that's specific to your era.
Wow. Let me see.
He don't even
You
remember.
know, it's funny. No, I remember the whole. More
Him and Dusabo was saying things like, hitherto.
See, yeah, can't beat you already. So,
He beat me already.
Dusabo the same age. Me and Dusabo, I was hanging out with Dusabo, right?
He was one of the,
Right.
he's one of the settlers.
I mean, you know, we were more, in the, you know, we had witticisms but we would talk about, I mean, I hate this.
Did y'all say Charlie? Was Charlie your era? That was our era, right?
Now, that's our era.
Yeah, we was
Nah, nah.
Charlie, Joe.
and Joe.
Everybody
Yeah.
was Charlie
We
and Joe.
took that from y'all.
Right.
Show, but it wasn't that old.
I mean, we use boy a lot, you know, and not in that
Not in the-
derogatory
yeah.
sense, but, you know, what a boy.
That's my boy.
Boy. That's
It was
my
like
boy.
an A on the end. That's
Right,
my boy.
My boy.
Right. Wasn't no Y on the end of
B-O-I,
that.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
boy.
It's
That's
my boy.
Right. You know, homie was one of those terms. That,
Homie.
You know, homie was kind of, as we were kind of being young adults.
How did you tell people you were leaving?
I'm out.
We were
I'm
Audi
out.
5000.
Yeah, I didn't-
You remember?
yeah, that was
Why
bad,
did we
right?
add the 5000 though,
Audi
Cam? Why
5000?
did we need the 5000?
No idea.
Yo, I'm Audi 5000.
Right.
Gee.
What is it, the Audi? Yeah, the Audi. Yeah, right.
Oh, because it was a car.
Audi was a car, right.
I'm getting in the car. I
Right,
never
Audi,
made
right.
that association. I was just using words
neither.
because everybody
Right.
around me was.
But one of it didn't stick too long, but we had the Shalimar.
What is that?
You had to make that move.
Oh, you definitely
Yeah,
going
to make that
way
move.
old school for
That
me.
was 70s, that was 70s, early
You
80s.
used the whole light skin band to
Shalimar, yeah,
establish you
Shalimar,
leaving.
Shalimar, right.
That's
Yeah, the
wild.
Shalimar.
I'm
Yeah,
finna
make
make
that
that move.
Had
It's
to make
funny,
that
man.
move.
I caught myself recently trying to teach my little cousin how to properly use woo wop the bam.
Woo wop the bam.
Woo wop the bam.
That was y'all generation?
Man,
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, we definitely woo wop the bam.
Because we use that a lot.
Yeah.
I still use
woo
it.
wop the bam. You know what I'm saying? And the
never
other
used
day I was at Mariano's and I was in the seasoning section and they had time leaves, right? So you had the minced time leaves and you had the actual full time leaves, and they say on it says whole time. I'm like, man, whole time. That's how we used to say. Like,
That's-
whole
that's
time.
this one.
Yeah. And I thought it was so funny.
Whole
but
time.
my wife
That's
said,
hilarious.
Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, whole time.
No, but whole time is your
Whole time.
generation.
That's mine.
Whole time is your
That's
generation.
ours.
We didn't
Whole
say
time.
that.
Right.
My boy Coffee, man, shout out to Coffee. He whole time.
Right.
Like he sing this the
Right.
way he talking. What y'all saying now?
Shoot.
Like how you leave? How you tell people you leaving?
Deuces probably one of the things we say. Peace out. You know,
Peace out is
peace out
yeah,
is
peace
old.
out is
That's
old
old.
school.
But I mean that passed through the
I'm out,
generations.
yeah,
Yeah.
You know, you're getting older when you don't even say bye. You just leave.
You just leave. Right.
I don't say nothing. I just leave.
Right.
You gonna know I'm gone.
Right.
You might have had the one, one.
Yeah, one.
Right.
One.
What about like? So I'll give you again chance to catch
Yeah.
up real quick. He was saying in his era, you were trying to approach a lady, you trying to get her attention, whatever. He had to dance.
You had the peacock kind of thing.
Yeah, he was like you had to step. Well, you had to step, or you had to do house. He was a
I
stepper.
was a stepper. You didn't know that. I was a stepper.
Oh, you was a stepper?
Yeah.
All right. You still can
Apparently, he was also a DJ.
You still can have? Okay. All right.
But
we got to see that.
House one day, I got my stuff in the
Look, listen.
I want to see that. I step too. You know, I'll see what you're working with.
No, I can still play around.
He getting serious right now. Like, but so like me and Cam was saying, it was like you kind of had to have something slick to say. You kind of had to. You also had to have something that separated you. You know what I'm saying? Like you had to have a pager at one point. You know what I mean? That was how you got attention. I wasn't fit to go out there and dance. That's a little corny for me at that time, right? But I must sit on this wall with this pager and act like somebody's actually calling me.
You, right.
So what do you do?
pager.
Or not do, but what's your era do?
Man, it's kind of hard. We had a lot of things led to another. See, we had juke parties.
Juke.
And
I remember
We
juke
did.
party.
We had
Yeah,
juke
juke
parties.
My
party.
daughter had one man put a hole in my wall down in the basement. Right. You might have been to the party. I don't know.
Trauma.
Listen, I plead the fifth. Listen. No, we had juke parties. I mean, one thing always led to another. You had your parties where teenagers was grinding on each other, and that led to another. But when you go to a girl and you trying to, I mean, I was always scared to approach women. I ain't gonna lie. I was one of those that's like,
After Rashonda smacked you up on the
Right,
bus. This ain't what I want.
like the guys like, come on, J Walk. They had to go to the girl and be like, hey, he wants you.
Yeah. You know, pass the note through the homie. Yeah.
You had to intermediate, right? Well, you had right.
Shy brother. Yeah. Shy brother. Yeah.
But I don't know. I think
Right.
you always a little show off always is in every generation. I think too. Yeah.
Peacock syndrome. Yeah, you had to show off.
You got to show off a little
You're
bit.
different, right?
Yeah.
What's something that you wish Chicago had that we don't have?
Man,
What did you say?
it's a good question.
Did you say Waffle House? She said Waffle House.
There are a lot of people who say that. There are a lot of people who love Waffle House.
Really? It's like 4 people that just raised their. All right, so that's
Yeah, a
new.
lot of people
We
who
need to
love
add this
Waffle
to the referendum. We need a
we-
Waffle
we'll
House in
add that to
Chicago.
them.
I'm a big O-Hop fan, so I love O-Hop.
O-Hop. You mean
I was like,
what is
like,
O-Hop?
what is that? Sound like O Block?
Original
O Block
House
pancakes?
Oh.
We got two.
Original
We
House
got
of
Hyde
Pancakes.
Park and
Oh,
Beverly.
got
yeah,
Beverly,
yeah.
And it used to be one in Lincoln Park.
Yeah.
There
There's one on the Gold Coast.
And then one on the Gold Coast.
O-Hop is cool.
O-Hop.
But we
O-Hop
have
and
that.
Bacon. I mean, I know you
Oh,
can't
it's
do bacon.
bacon.
Well, look, I went to O-Hop the other day and the bacon wasn't thick.
No, I ain't
I was
gonna lie.
very upset. I
Oh,
promise you. I went
he
last
teased me
I
'cause I-
retract that.
I went last Saturday. I don't know if
The bacon ain't thick.
supply
I can't
chain
have it any
issues
longer,
or
right,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a little bit different.
So other than
nowadays.
Waffle House, what's something you wish Chicago had?
Man, that's a good question.
I mean,
we really
anybody
got
can answer,
everything.
yeah.
We really got
Something
everything.
Chicago had.
Maybe a mountain to climb.
Rod said another football team. Rod said,
Ooh, you gonna go there right
football
now?
team.
Another football
You gonna go
team.
there today? That was yesterday,
You can
man.
see it out the window. If you
Yeah,
look
that was
outside.
yesterday, man.
You need something to go on the
So
social
check
field?
this out.
Right.
I'm in the Uber yesterday, and somebody mentioned that. They said, I mentioned I'm having this conversation with,
Yeah.
mayoral candidates.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, man, you need to tell them about the Bears. And I'm like, no, we're not talking about politics. We talking about
Right.
Chicago, right?
Dope.
But when he said it, I said, listen, the Bears now own that property. I don't know if anybody watched the Arlington Heights people.
Yeah.
They said, we're not sure we're putting a sports complex here.
Right.
We're not promising we're putting anything related to a stadium here. We're just saying that we agreed to a deal with the Chicago Bears. So
Right.
to me, slight politic moment, right? To me, that's a leverage play. That's not a we're gone, the Bears are gone.
Well, I disagree. I disagree on that. Listen, as a businessman, if I own the Bears, I would leave too, right? And the reason why is because the Bears own nothing here. And so to have their own stadium and they can own the parking, own the
Right,
concession.
that's what I'm saying.
I mean, it's just a better business deal. And so that's why they're trying to shake us down for money. But the reality of the situation is, even if we gave them the money, they still are not going to be happy at Soldier Field long term. So at some point,
it's
they
going to
want
be a
to leave.
renegotiated situation.
No,
yeah.
so
They
Yeah.
want to be
Just
in
too
control.
small. I mean, it's too
Yeah,
small.
they're not
It
going to be
is.
happy there. So trying to please them by giving up billions of dollars right now just to have this problem again in the next decade, it don't make
I
sense.
appreciate that perspective.
But I think the challenge the Bears are going to have is they got the money to buy the property. Building a facility, even if it gets approved, is going to be another thing. They're going to have to take on somebody
And that's-
or take on tremendous debt.
And that's why they're
Yeah.
reaching out to the state of
State of
Illinois
Illinois,
to
right.
be
Exactly.
helpful.
Yeah.
And that's why
Right.
I have been staunch in my advocacy to push back against that.
Yeah.
I pushed back against that weeks ago. We'll continue to. The truth of the matter is this: I think this may be a valuation play for the Bears. They want to increase their valuation because I believe that the
Yeah.
the family probably
Wants
wants
to
to
sell
get
it.
out of the business.
They'll sell,
Miss McCaskill got to be
So
what?
either
117.
Jeff Bezos or
Real talk.
Jim Green, one of them might buy
one
the
of them
Bears.
real
right?
rich
No. We're
Rich
going to start a
people
new
might buy
team.
the Bears,
We're going to start a new team.
Yeah. Anyway, slight politics.
But let me, to your last question, I say, I'm a big nature fan. So Chicago is a real city place. So I wish I was able to couple
See
it
the
with
garden?
a little more nature.
Interesting.
I've climbed mountains and I go to other places for nature purposes, other cities. That's the only thing that's missing. But other than that, I think we got everything.
They got that landfill by the factory. By the House of Hope.
You climb that. You climb that on a Saturday.
You know how bad the thing used to stink?
Oh my
You know how
God!
bad the thing used to stink? It don't stink like it used to, but it used to stink.
We used to climb a wall to get up on the metro and everything in the hood.
That's
Like, we used to
hilarious.
climb,
I don't want to hold
yeah.
y'all too long, man. We've been here a minute, but But we brought up the Bears sports. Are you Bears fans?
I'm a Bears fan.
Favorite Bear?
Well, Walter Payton's got to be my all-time favorite Bear. Yeah,
That makes sense. I mean, it's hard to argue with Walter Payton.
You grew up with Walter Payton.
I did. I got to
really did.
Hey, I got to tell you,
Right.
He grew up with George Halas.
Walter Payton's last game in December of '88, I think it was. I was on the back page of the paper with Walter Payton standing right behind him when he gave his speech. No, my dad was giving him a plaque for his last regular season game, and I was there just on the background. I was an adult, young adult, but they say time to go, and they grabbed me. I thought I was just going to stay back, and they grabbed me. We ran all on the field, and I stood behind. I still got the picture standing behind Walter on the back page of the paper. Walter's giving his speech. As a matter of fact, my cousin called me from California. I saw it live. He said, "Man, I see you, cuz." Right, so-
Cuz, that's another Chicago.
Cuz, that's another cuz.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, Walter Payton is still my number one favorite.
What about you,
Cam
Cam?
is a Green Bay Packers fan.
Yeah, right. All right.
What?
I'm a
Oh, bro, I was about to end the podcast.
don't even-
Like, cut your mic off.
listen.
Try to
I'm
throw
a
some eyeball on
defensive lineman, man, and so
Right, yeah.
William the Refrigerator Perry.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Is a guy, man. Not only was he amazing and super athletic for his size and playing his position, that's the same position I played in college, but he, through his personality, was outsized. And you haven't seen many Bears with that type of personality since him. And I also will say that I've had the opportunity to hang out with that dude, and he's different. He's a different guy.
right
So, yeah, the fridge.
Yo, Refrigerator Perry, first of all, was the first defensive lineman to score a touchdown, I'm fairly sure, in the Super Bowl. I'm
Probably the only one,
Probably
actually.
the
Yeah,
Amazing.
no. Tom Brady and them was throwing Buddy them a couple years
Okay.
ago.
He don't count.
Just for the facts check. We
That's
have
the
the
Rod
actual.
picture?
This is the Rod picture.
This
is right.
What was you about 30, 35? Right there, bro.
First of all, you look like Mike Singletary.
I was 25.
Well, I wish you could see. It's so
25.
pixelated from the time era
Right,
that it's
so, yeah,
in,
right.
but it's a beautiful picture.
That is a good pick. You ain't got the thing?
No, I should know. And you know what? I've been trying to get the actual newspaper article. I'm gonna have to reach out. And we finally
Sometimes.
just found the date, so now I can try
Yeah,
to get the
yeah, you can get the
article.
archives.
remastered.
You
You
can
get
get that at the
it
Harold
remastered,
Washington
right, yeah.
Library.
Yeah.
Shout out to Harold Washington for no reason. I mean, for all the reasons, but also randomly. Your favorite bear?
Grizzly bear.
Wow.
Are you telling me you're not a football? See, this is what my students do to me all the time. You know that ain't the question, man.
Wow.
Gummy bear.
Well, look, I'm not a super football fan. I'm more of a basketball fan. But the Bears has been rough, my lifetime. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah,
Bears
all
been
our
rough.
lifetimes.
So I've always picked up other teams that I like that went further. Like,
Don't say any of them. No.
I'm not gonna say
Don't say
any.
other
Chicago,
names.
it's
We are in Chicago, sir. Like, this is not an opportunity to
I'm
highlight
just
other
saying the
people.
ones who went further than the Bears, but we cheer the Bears all the way to the.
Could you pick one person, please? Just one bear that you know is alive. Somebody that you saw with a blue and orange jersey on that did good.
We're going to give J-Mal Martellus Bennett, man, because Martellus.
Yeah.
He a lot like
Martellus
J-Mal.
Bennett.
That's my boy.
Yeah.
Martellus,
That's a good call. That's a good call. Shout out to Martellus.
That's a good brother, man.
So difficult for no
Marty
reason.
Forrest Rex. Shout
Chicago
out to
Bull.
Marty.
Favorite Chicago Bull, J-Mal. You kick it off since that's your team.
Favorite Chicago Bull would be, I say Derrick Rose. Reason why is because my sister went to school with him and I used to play with him when I was a young boy.
Slight flex.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Got it. You still got skills? You still out there shooting?
Oh, yeah. I'm like, they call me Lil Kobe, but
that's the next one.
Call me Lil Kobe.
Look, Kobe.
Man.
Lil Kobe.
Because you got beat.
Nobody calls you that. Because look, I'm just telling you. The next time I invite y'all, we hooping.
Right,
Anyway,
we here. Hey,
Cam.
let's do it.
I mean, obviously, the GOAT was here, right? And yesterday was his 60th birthday, so shout out to him. But my favorite Bull besides Michael was probably Craig Hodges, man. Because Craig Hodges was like around when I was coming into my own personality, and my father was super militant, and so he reminded me of Craig.
Yeah.
And when Craig Hodges wore that white dashiki to the White House and had President Bush looking crazy, that really solidified him in my mind as my favorite Bull. And I still have a Craig Hodges jersey in my closet.
First of all, you need to frame that. But Craig Hodges was a basketball coach at Chicago State.
That's right.
And I didn't know that when I was going there. And when I saw him one day on campus, I was like freaking out because I remember watching him. The best part about Craig Hodges is people don't notice he won the 3-point contest 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
Like people, like when you talk to NBA players, they talk about Craig like, yo, that's the one dude. Like they talk about him like we talk about Steph now.
Right.
They was like, yo, the minute he touched the ball, if you ain't in his face, it's buckets. Yeah.
Pure shooter from the South suburbs, right? So
Yeah.
he's the hometown guy too.
Yeah, he is. He's always here. I just saw him not too long ago.
Yeah, just like Cam, obviously the GOAT was here and had a pleasure to watch him. And we're the same. He's a couple months older than me. Somebody's older than me. Finally.
He found the one person in Chicago.
The one person.
I'll be 60 in April. Yeah, I'll be 60 in April. So,
Dang.
but I grew up. My cousin, who's here today, played a lot of basketball, and he played with a lot of the Bulls players, and they would come around the house quite often. So people like Orlando Woolridge would come hang out with us.
Orlando Woolridge.
And my guy, I
forget
got to say, my
about
guy, I loved him to death to this day. Wes Matthews was the most amusing guy that I ever met in my life that played basketball. I mean, he would be around us all the time. Just come hang out, come in the back in the barbecue, and be there on the regular. Wes Matthews was my guy, right? And
So
then, through my cousin Mark, who's here, right?
I'm Scottie Pippen, man. So I have 4 siblings.
Scotty.
And we fashion ourselves after we have like a running joke called the starting 5, right?
Yeah.
And so like my oldest brother, he's Dennis Rodman. For all the reasons you would imagine, right? Like he's Dennis Rodman, right? I'm Scotty, right? I'm second oldest. My sister was on American Idol. She's a star, man. So she's the GOAT. We call her MJ. She could. My quick story: we were in Boston for my baby sister's graduation. I bought a gallon of vodka because I was the first person there. We get to the Airbnb. They all come in. They was like, "What's that?" I was like, "It's for the weekend." It was like, none of us drink that. My sister walked to the store and got them to take the bottle back and got whiskey. I've never seen anybody return liquor to a liquor store in the history of liquordom. I'm telling you, I've never seen this before, right? So I was like, "You the GOAT, like you the greatest." My
What were you gonna drink? I thought you drank vodka.
no, I just bought it for the
you bought it for
house.
the house,
Yeah, it was
right.
just for the weekend. I thought people was gonna drink. I don't know. Anyway, my younger brother is, we call him Cool Coach because he's tall, kind of slanky. He's also like, I don't know, it's gonna sound weird, but he's kind of like European. He's got a very different kind of flavor than the rest of us, right? And then my baby sister is, we call her Steve Kerr because she's the baby, but also Steve Kerr, of course, is the coach of the next dynasty.
Yeah.
And so our nieces and nephews, they the Golden State
right.
team. So anyway,
Real
Scottie
tough.
Pippen is my guy. All right, man, this has been a great conversation. I don't want to keep y'all. I know y'all got actual stuff to do. I'll leave it with this, though. You all are running for mayor. Like, that's a real thing. And we intentionally didn't want to talk about politics today. But I do think it's important to say two things. One, it takes an extreme amount of courage to actually wake up one day and say, I'm going to run for any political office. But to run for mayor of Chicago takes an entire different level of courage. For sure. For two reasons, I say. One, it's obviously hard. But two, you know that there's no way you're going to win everybody. Right. You know that. When you make that decision, somebody is going to now seek to see me as an enemy in some shape, form, or fashion. Right? So the courage it takes is extraordinary to me. Yeah. Two, it has got to be the toughest job. I think it's tougher than being the president of the United States in so many ways, right? Like, it is a very, very difficult position. So I'm going to just say shout out to the fact that you all actually said, I'm doing that. Right. That's a real decision. Like, clap it up for you for doing it. Clap it up for yourselves, please. But I am going to ask, like, what is that thing that, again, not necessarily the policy or the thing, but like, what's that behind that drive to make that decision to say, I'm going to stand up and, I'm going to add this because I can, because it's my podcast, as a black man. Yeah. Like, what is that fuel? Where is that coming from?
Well, I'll just really quickly. I think that for all our positions, whether you're a community activist, state rep, or an alderman currently, if you care about what you do, it's really tough. It's really hard doing what you do because you care about it. You want to see people succeed. So, particularly as a black man, I just want to make sure that we're providing resources and opportunities for people in our neighborhoods, people where we all come up from, and just do the right thing. I mean, I don't try to overcomplicate the matter. I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. We're benefiting Chicagoans, and particularly black Chicagoans, because we've hit it hard. We've been hit hard so many times over these years and decades.
Since the beginning.
We got to do better.
Yeah. I think the premise of this podcast really is why, right? There's something special about growing and blossoming and blooming in the garden you were planted in, right? Yeah. And so for those of us who are sitting here who are Chicago through and through, who no matter what happens in February or April or for the next decade here, we're not going anywhere. Right. It's important, I think, to all of us, and I think I speak for my brothers on both sides of me, that we begin to create the change that we want to see in this city, right? And so to be able to have three black men, all accomplished, all running for mayor in the third largest city in the country, who are from here, but who also want to lay the groundwork for the future of this city, right? All fathers, right? We're, when you think about Rod and, Lil Rod and Sidney and the work that he did as a father, you think about Jalen and Jaden, got it right? And my son Cass and what we were trying to build for them in this city. And as I get a little emotional when I talk about it, and I look at Brian Sleep looking at us, man.
Exactly. I forgot that was even there. I 100% forgot that was there until we first sat down.
Every moment I sit here, I've watched that.
So that's it. That's why. Man. For sure.
That's crazy. I didn't even look over and see Brian. He was one of the first people who really grabbed me early and kind of pushed me into politics too. Especially when he was running Kim Foxx campaign, her first run. But what I'll say is, I love that you just said that real quick, Cam, because we are actually all from the city of Chicago, like born and raised. And I think the rest of the people in the race are either from the suburbs or other cities. And really is the one thing for me is the fact that I've seen rejection all of my life in my community, whether it be by politicians, whether it be by schools who weren't prepared to deal with students. I just saw so much despair and so much hurt and so much discouragement, so many young people that are hopeless. I lost so many of my friends to gun violence. It was the fact that somebody needed to make sure that the voices of the people from the streets that I grew up in, that I love, that I still frequent, right? Those people who are hurting so much, that they have a voice. And so that's what pushed me. It's like I'm willing to be that sacrifice to make sure that the most vulnerable people of this city have a voice on this platform. And that's what was most important to me.
Man, well, listen, I can't say how much I appreciate y'all, even though y'all made me get up at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and I'm a whole school teacher. You don't know how precious Saturday sleep is to me. I just want to be really clear. Got me coffeeed up and everything. Saturday sleep.
We don't know such thing.
I will say this. When I invite y'all back, though, we're going to be on the basketball court. It's me and Cam versus y'all two because I got to balance the age out. I'm not.
Wait. You gonna
like,
put
I feel
me
like
on
that's 80 to 80. You
Hold
know
on,
what I'm saying?
You can't put me on the
Your
team with
60
Rob.
and his 20 is me and his 40. No, yeah, you too young.
I need my center.
No, 20 and 60, 40 and 40. That's 80-80, B. That's where we go. I'm good at math. Hey, man, I appreciate you, brothers, man.
Appreciate you,
I
man.
really do, man. And I wish all of y'all luck beyond this one race, man. I just love the fact that y'all are really about the business that y'all say y'all about. For
sure.
And we about each other too.
100%.
And people
100%.
don't, and this is real, people don't see this.
Yeah, for
People
sure.
don't see Chicago politics in normal humanity with each
No,
other.
we're
Real
not
talk.
opponents. We're just running for the same
Same
audience.
That's it.
Exactly.
That's
We
how
all
I met
together.
Ryan Sleep, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I win, I'm gonna hire both of them.
See, I'll take that. Wait, I don't get a job?
You come host.
I feel like I'm pretty good at this.
Habitual line step over there.
Habitual line stuff in a whole nother generation. All right, man. It's a pleasure.
Right.
That's the first episode of the Home Rule Podcast, man. We look forward to more. And I think that's it. I wish I had some like
sure.
exit music like the Chicago Bulls. Yeah.
Got it in.
Post editing.
For sure.